excited about is we're excited to talk about what we do in the storytelling space in a room full of storytellers. We go around and we talk to a lot of people about what we do. It's very rare that we do it in front of a group this big, of people who really understand how hard it is to tell great stories on a daily basis. So we kind of envision this as a little bit of a Q&A, kind of warts and all overview of a specific deal that we did that we're really proud of, and we hope that the conversation we have resonates with all of you who are doing this, the dirty work on a daily basis. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a background on this. We were given a challenge by our friends at Universal McCann, who are partners with Ram Trucks. And they came to us and they said that the month of April is always a very important time for them in terms of moving a large volume of Ram trucks. And for a long time, they had a very, very big, high-level event sponsorship in the month of April. Huge event, Las Vegas, music, broadcast, digital, something that was just really, really massive. But it wasn't really working for them anymore, for a lot of reasons. It worked for a long time, it was great, but they were moving on. They were looking for their next April opportunity. So they came to a bunch of partners, and we're lucky we have a long-term relationship with Ram from our history brand. And they said to us, look, we'd really like if you came to us with your best shot at something that you could do to help us convey the fact that our trucks last longer than any other trucks on the road. So we said, okay, so as someone who works at a content company, right? A&E Networks, we're History, we're A&E, we're Lifetime. We have a 35-year track record of creating amazing content. So I was really excited to go to the History brand and give them the RFP overview, and I said, okay, what do you got for me? What are we going to take back? And they said nothing. And I said, nothing. I said, you guys, you're the programmers. You're the guys that can create Vikings. You guys created Vietnam in HD, World War II in HD, Pawn Stars, right? What do you got for me? They said, nothing. April of 2017 is kind of a quiet month in our edit calendars, we like to call it. We've got a bunch of Pawn Stars reruns. And so I said, well, I can't take that to the meeting at UM. So we sat down as a group, we kind of came together, and we had a conversation, and we really thought about the remit that we were given from the guys at RAM and the guys at UM, and that was specifically to convey the message about longest lasting. The reason they were walking away from this major event wasn't because it wasn't good in its own right, it just wasn't conveying their message at that moment. And so that's when it kind of hit us that okay, the way we're going to convey that message is storytelling. Actually, someone said it last night, I apologize, I don't remember who it was, but it was the line that where there's ROI, there's budgets. And that I've actually been searching for over a year since we did this. I've been searching for a way to explain what I felt when we wanted to take our storytelling idea to them, and it's just that. I think we can prove, using the history brand, telling original stories, brought to the viewer, brought to the consumer by RAM, I think there's ROI there. We know that has resonance with our viewer and their consumer, and I think we can find some budget if we do it. So fast forward, we go to the meeting, we sit down, the clients say, okay, what do you have? What's the big event? So I say, there's no big event. They say, okay, no problem. What's the big hit show? I say, no, there's no big hit shows. They were like, what do you have for us? And the room is getting very quiet. My boss's boss is in the room, and I said, we have storytelling. The room is quiet for a second, and I look down at the decision maker in the room, and he looks back at me and goes, storytelling, like I do with my kids at night in bed. And the only thing that I could think of was, I go, when you tell your kids stories at night in bed, do you use the power of the world's largest male entertainment brand? And he goes, no, that would just be really weird. And so then everybody kind of, that lightened things up, and we were allowed to sort of explain what our idea was. And I'm going to show you guys a kind of an overview of what the idea was, and how it played out. And then Kevin and I are going to talk a little bit more about how we got from that meeting to what you're seeing on screen here. So.
Beginning in March, we kicked off the campaign, with our mile marker quizzes and postcards for Route 20. That really helped us generate the awareness and the momentum going into April, where we were continuously releasing new content on both on-air platforms and on our social platforms. Traditionally, a client would take their brand and infuse it into history programming. And with this partnership, we're actually taking history and we're infusing that into our brand's initiatives.
The Kale name has been on the farm for over 100 years.
This is home. It's what we do here. You live off the land one way or another.
There's more women in rodeo that have set history than men. I want to be on that list one day.
We were really excited to work with Zach Fowler, winner of season 3 of Alone. He was able to outlast the rest, and it fit perfectly with Ram's Long Live campaign.
We've seen some amazing places, met some amazing people, maple syrup farmers, oyster farmers, rodeo riders. They're hardworking people. The stories are different, but their passion and the love of what they do is the same, and that's what's amazing about Route 20.
Creating branded content, creating native content that all aligns with Ram's brand pillars and values, that's what Stories from the Longest Road is all about.
That is historic Route 20, the longest road in America. We thought that theme kind of played off very nice against the longest lasting brand message that Ram was trying to convey. And so rather than using a big event or a big hit show or a big sponsorship to tell that story, we just created, I think it was like 190 pieces of unique individual creative that aired on the broad linear channel, that aired on our digital video sites, that aired on all of our social feeds throughout the month of April, so that when you were watching history in the month of April, hopefully you got the message that it was about Ram and there was something really valuable going on.
So the interesting part to this is, and those of us that have been in the media business, and I know a lot of us in here obviously are, is that the programmers say no. Ethan and team ultimately come back with a great idea that really aligns the brands well, actually brings on a brand through the storytelling pitch, and then has an opportunity to do something very much breakthrough relative to what history has been doing in the past. So it's a win-win. So I guess for me, my question, and I wasn't in the room at the time for these meetings when they were developing this campaign, but to me it's interesting because so at that point you have a development process to go through. Tell us a little bit about how that works, because you're going to have a lot of people involved.
Yeah, so that was really interesting for someone like me who I'm relatively new to the storytelling game. I come from a more traditional broad reach media background, both on the agency side and at A&E, and this was a real opportunity to engage all of the different parts of our organization to tell stories. That for a long time our company was one that thought of ourselves as long-form storytellers, the programmers, the producers. Those are the storytellers. But what about all the people, in our organization that make short-form content, that make ad-supported content, that make digital content? They're storytellers too. And the first thing I had to do is I had to go out and I had to kind of gather those people up and ask them to come up. I said, look, the programmers, the people that call themselves the storytellers in our place, they've got other things going on, but this is an opportunity that we need to take advantage of. How do we do that? And it was hard, but we figured it out.
Well, and I would, at that point you had to look at other resources, obviously, which I know you'll talk about here at some point. But I mean, when you start to amass that giant structure with a process and a scale of this partnership, the interesting thing is too did the clients, and I know there's some agency folks in here as well, I mean, how did the clients, when they looked at that and realized the largesse of what that was going to be,
yeah. and
you only had, 8 weeks to put this all together, something like that?
Yeah, basically from the time that they agreed that it was an idea they wanted to pursue to the time that all the materials had to be done, it was about 8 weeks. So what became clear to us really early on, and I think this is probably critical for everybody in this room, that we pitched this idea to a very small group of decision makers, but ultimately it was going to require a huge group of content producers and decision makers, not at our place, but at Ram's media agency, Ram's creative agency, the social agencies, at RAM, at FCA. We were going to have to tell this story, our vision, multiple times, many, many times over that approval process. And we couldn't do it in a way that was saying, look, this is something that so-and-so likes, so you got to get on board. we needed all these people to bring their best ideas and their best content. So that was a real lesson for us that great storytelling doesn't get done. It's not just about the idea that one person has in their head. It's about bringing all of the creators together and making them feel like they have an ownership role in the process.
So having done a few of these in other of my gigs, I would imagine the idea of trust came in a pretty big way. You kind of have to be very transparent. And when you're talking about, again, the size of and scope and scale that this program was.
Yep.
So, I mean, obviously it worked, but is there any backstory in those areas that could be interesting?
I think it's trust is kind of maybe like a two-part thing, right? There's the trust that we spend, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 when we're working, or maybe 7 to 10, whenever we all work. You're interacting with clients all the time. You're trying to develop trust so that when it comes time to execute a plan, there is already a little, sort of an innate base layer of trust you can tap into, a little bit of goodwill. We were fortunate enough to have it in this case. The second thing we had, and you guys saw him in the video, Brandon, who works on our partnerships team. You need someone in a project like this who's passionate about it. Brandon works at A&E. He works in our partnerships execution operation. He had a very specific job to do on this project. His job was to work with the fleet managers at RAM and get the trucks, get the vehicles where they needed to be, when they needed to be there. We filmed in New York, we filmed in Maine, we filmed in Wyoming, we filmed in Montana. We filmed in the winter, snow, all of this. What he ended up doing was, he ended up taking on a lot of extra roles that we hadn't necessarily assigned to people yet. He stepped into vacuums. Every time RAM needed something, every time UM needed something, every time a partner needed something, Brandon was the guy who would step up, get on a plane, go there. The guy that would stay late, figure out what we were going to do to solve for this. And it became clear to me and to the team real quick, he had a passion for it. And so he became the face. Once we were done with the ideation, once we were done with the negotiation, I didn't know that Brandon was going to become the face of this deal, but he was the most passionate about it. And that was a great lesson to me, that if you're going to do something complex like this, you've got to put somebody in charge. I don't care what his title is. I don't care what your 9 to 5 job is. I care about how badly we want to get this done. And he was that guy on our team.
Well, and I think everybody in this room realizes too, the point of like, if you find that champion that's willing to take that on and put it on their shoulders, and ultimately, again, Brandon is not only internally, but has to look across the entire scope of the agencies that are involved on the UN side and any of the RAM, clients that might have been involved. So it gets a little hairy.
Definitely.
Yeah. So ultimately everything came together, but can you talk just about, say, our side and internally on history and how that came together in the group? Because with the number of folks that we have that are doing amazing creative opportunities across A&E networks and specifically history in this case, I mean, there had to be a lot of collaboration just with that group in our own house.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first off, we had to convince the history brand that it was okay to do something cool and higher profile that didn't involve a show that we were producing. Which,
how many times did you have to pitch that?
2 or 3, maybe. I mean, if you come from a sort of, I guess, a legacy mass media brand, that's not something that comes naturally. That's a progression, that's a process that we as a company have been going through. And this, I think, was a really great bridge for that. We showed them that it can take some pressure off of them. Not every good thing we do, to make money at our company has to stem from $1 million an hour content creation perspective. It can come from advertiser-created content, and that doesn't cheapen or devalue their brand. We really think there's nothing about this that, had it not been RAM, wouldn't have fit on history, already. And so if you come at it from that lens, I think it creates a lot of trust.
Yeah, well, when you're going to have a partner that actually bites down and you don't have to pitch any others.
Yeah.
And then you have the hero in-house relative to Brandon, and then the teams that are collaborating. There's going to be
Absolutely. That actually, question for you. So Kevin's role in this, Kevin now is charged with taking this idea, all of this hard work, and scaling it. How do we do this now, not just for one advertiser, not just for 2 advertisers, but how do we take all of this effort and do it at scale, which I assume is a challenge that a lot of you have in this room. any words of wisdom?
Sure, yeah, well, I mean, the beauty of it is that once you've done one of these massive scale opportunities like this, there's always gonna be a full, opportunity to create more. So once you get that learning, it really kind of, the Band-Aid is now off, and you understand what all the pains are, you understand who you're dealing with, you understand all the people that are surrounding this. You're not always lucky enough to just have one brand partner that you have to talk to, because the number of pitches that we've all probably had, in the days is huge. But just the idea of doing that at scale, getting those learnings, understanding everything from the original development process all the way down to the executional and delivering on time, on brand, and with happy clients, that then leads to the whole next piece where, internally you start to want to do more of this. At that point, it becomes like, all right, we got this one, it worked, the clients are super happy, what's the next one? So I think now, internally, the company is thinking, okay, where can we go? We've got so many opportunities, so many other platforms. And by the way, it doesn't have to just be at scale either, too. Well, this was a huge program. I'm sure many of you out here understand that the folks that are coming in for very specific niche audience opportunities. These are looking for specific, like psychographics, and the programs don't have to all be super scale. So, I think that really starts to kind of open up the flower, if you will, relative to saying, okay, here we go. We've actually got this knowledge and we can do it. So
yeah, I think actually that kind of leads into a point about using data and technology. That we're not a data company, we're not a technology company. We are content creators. That's who we are at heart. But I think we're pretty good at taking technology and data that's available to everybody, right? The democratization of technology that we have right now, the ways that we can prove value, how are we delivering on ROI, whatever that metric is. Maybe talk a little bit about some of the things that you take advantage of.
Yeah, we all hear. We heard data 150 times yesterday, and not in a bad way, but because that's what we deal with now. That is a component part to how we kind of look at everything from creative to strategy to you name it. Any type of program is going to be informed at a certain level by data. Sometimes there are still programs that are informed purely by instinct that then wrap the data around it. Right? So there's still that human aspect, which I honestly have to say I'm a big fan of that, but the data can actually get us to a better place ultimately when it starts to talk about audience and audience development or niche opportunity, whatever it might be. So we bring that into everything that we have already now, and I know we're both using it in our day jobs for the most part, as is the entire company. So it's just something that is now part of this industry and part of what we want to do as storytellers. But it's just a matter of who and how you use that data and just bring it into the house and take it from there. So
I think that might be a decent way to wrap it up, which is that we've found a lot of success in being true to who we are as storytellers, but not being afraid to go out and bolt on the capabilities that maybe aren't core to our DNA, at our company, but that are crucial to the clients. And I think that's a pretty decent position for a lot of us to take.
Yeah, and I think the end game is really that while, again, those of us understanding the media world and the media ecosystem, it used to be about distribution and platforms and added value and custom content and things of that nature. All of a sudden, we're now in a situation where we go from all of those great assets that have been around for those 35 years, right, relative to A&E networks and history specifically, but also then moving into the other side of the house, if you will, where you see all of these other great opportunities, whether it's social, digital, you name it, all of those assets, all of our creative teams that are doing the great work that are fueling the brands, but at the same time fueling brands, meaning our brands, but also fueling brand partners with different ways that they can come in and create IP from the ground up. It doesn't have to be about linear, but we love it when it's also linear as well or combined. So I think there's just a whole new way to look at a media company. We feel like we've got that. We're very nimble. We're very creative. We've got the assets, and away we go. So it's time to rock and roll.
Yes. Hopefully, we didn't make this conversation feel like the longest road as part of this this meeting. We thank you guys for listening. We really do. And kind of final piece of good news: the bar.
Yes.
Enjoy it.
Yes.
Thank you.